The lily smelled like a fresh start. I gripped the plastic wrap tightly, making sure the petals didn't bruise. As I unlocked the front door, "Sarah, I'm home." "I got the vintage champagne you like." Silence met me. Then the clicking of high heels on the marble floor. Sarah walked into the kitchen, wearing a suit that cost more than my first car. She didn't smile. "You're late, Liam," she said, her voice cold. The florist was packed. Everyone wants Lily today, I guess. I stepped forward to kiss her cheek. She pulled away. "Hey, what's wrong?" "You're the new CEO. We should be dancing." "Sit down," she said, pointing at the kitchen island. I blinked, setting the flowers in a glass vase. "Is everything okay? Did the board meeting go badly?" "The meeting was perfect. It's this that isn't working." She slid a thick manila envelope across the counter. I opened it, expecting a contract or a legal joke. Instead, the bold letters at the top hit me like a physical punch. "Divorce papers?" I whispered. My heart felt like it was shrinking. "Sarah, what is this?" "Is this a prank for the promotion?" "I don't have time for pranks, Liam. My life is moving at a different speed now." She crossed her arms, looking at me as if I were a smudge on her windshield. "I'm the CEO of a top-tier marketing firm. I'll be traveling to London, Tokyo, and New York. I need a partner who fits that world." "I fit your world," I argued, my voice cracking. "I built that world. Who designed your first logo? Who stayed up until dawn writing your keynote speeches for 3 years while you slept? I worked 3 jobs so you could quit yours and focus on this dream. And I'm grateful for the help, really," she said, checking her gold watch. "But let's be honest. You're a freelance designer. You work in your pajamas from the couch. You're stagnant. You're comfortable. I am elite." "Elite?" I stood up, the chair screeching against the floor. "We're a team, Sarah. We're husband and wife." "You said we were a powerhouse." "I said what I needed to say to get us here," she countered. "But I've outgrown you. You're no longer at my level. Keeping you around is like dragging an anchor behind a speedboat." I looked at the lily. They looked pathetic now. 5 years, Sarah. 5 years of my life, my money, and my soul went into your career. You're ending our marriage in 5 minutes? "It's better this way. Quick and clean," she said, handing me a pen. "I've already moved your things in the boxes in the garage." "Julian, my lead investor, is picking me up for a gala in 20 minutes. It would be awkward if you were still here." "Julian? The guy who tried to tank your merger last year?" "He's a visionary, Liam, something you'll never understand." She sighed, looking bored. "Just sign. I've left you the car and a small settlement. It's more than you get in court." I looked at her, searching for the girl who used to share 99-cent ramen with me. She wasn't there. I realized then that I hadn't been building a life with a partner. I had been building a pedestal for a monster. "Fine," I said, my hand trembling as I signed the page. "Go to your gala, Sarah." "Thank you for being adult about this," she said, grabbing the papers. I watched her walk away. The love was gone. Only the cold, hard truth remained. The key turned with a rusty groan. I stepped into the apartment, the smell of stale dust hitting me like a physical weight. 1 room, 1 window, 1 light bulb flickering overhead. I dropped my last box on the floor, the sound echoing in the empty space. "Charming place, Liam. Really screams I just lost my soul," a voice joked from the doorway. I turned to see Marcus leaning against the frame, his arms crossed over his chest. He looked the same as he did in college. Expensive watch, sharp eyes, and that knowing smirk that used to annoy me. "I don't need the sarcasm today, Marcus," I said, sitting on a box. "I told you, didn't I?" He walked in, kicking a layer of dust aside. 5 years ago, at your wedding. I said Sarah was a shark in a sundress. "You told me I was cynical. I thought she loved me," I whispered. My hands were shaking. I spent 5 years being her ghost. "Do you know how many nights I sat at that kitchen table until 3 a.m.? I was analyzing market trends and building her pitch decks while she slept soundly. I gave her my best ideas, Marcus. I gave her everything. And she gave you a one-way ticket to a studio apartment," Marcus sighed, his expression softening. "Look, come work for me at Apex. I need a lead strategist who actually knows the guts of the industry. You're the best designer and analyst I know." I shook my head, staring at the peeling wallpaper. "I can't. I'm empty. I feel like if I try to think about a brand or a campaign, my brain will just shut down." "You're mourning a woman who is currently sipping $1,000 champagne at a gala," Marcus said, his voice rising. She's celebrating her freedom while you're rotting in a dust bowl. Get up. I just need time, I muttered. Please, just leave the keys. He stayed for a moment, then dropped a business card on the box next to me. The offer doesn't expire. But your life does, Liam. Don't let her take that too. He left, and the silence that followed was deafening. I tried to move the boxes, but my strength vanished. I sat on the floor in the hallway, my back against the cold wall. The tears came before I could stop them, hot, angry, and pathetic. Is the sink leaking again? I looked up. A woman with a mess of dark curls and a toolbox stood there. She looked at me, then at my single box, then back at my face. I'm Elena, she said, her voice gentle. I manage the building. Are you okay? You look like you've seen a ghost. I am a ghost, I choked out, wiping my eyes with my sleeve. First night is always the hardest, Elena said, reaching into her pocket and handing me a clean tissue. Do you need help with the heavy stuff? Or maybe a hammer? No, I said, standing up and avoiding her gaze. I'm fine. I moved in a hurry. I can see that, she replied. If you need anything extra blankets, a light bulb that doesn't flicker, or just a human to vent to, I'm in 4B. Don't sit in the dark all night, okay? Thanks, Elena, I said, though I knew I wouldn't call. I walked back into my room and closed the door. Somewhere across the city, Sarah was laughing under crystal chandeliers. I was here, surrounded by dust and the echoes of a life that was never really mine. The driveway was crowded with luxury SUVs and sports cars. I stared at her house, my knuckles white against the steering wheel of my battered sedan. I just needed my hard drives and my winter coat. I didn't expect a celebration. Music thumped through the front door as I pushed it open. The smell of expensive perfume and catering hors d'oeuvres hit me instantly. Liam, what are you doing here? Sarah appeared from the crowd, a glass of dark red wine in her hand. She looked stunning and entirely uninterested in my existence. I told you I'd be back for the rest of my things, Sarah. I didn't realize you were throwing a parade. It's an investor's mixer, she snapped, lowering her voice. Could you have at least dressed like you weren't going to a garage sale? You're embarrassing me. I'm sorry my grief didn't come with a tuxedo, I retorted. A tall man with perfectly gelled hair and a smirk that screamed old money stepped up beside her, sliding a familiar hand onto the small of her back. And who is this, Sarah? The delivery guy? Sarah laughed, a high, tinkling sound that made my skin crawl. Julian, meet Liam, my ex-husband. He was just leaving. Julian looked me up and down, his eyes stopping on my faded jeans. Ah, the famous Liam. The freelance designer who stayed at home while Sarah conquered the world. I've heard so much about your lack of ambition. It's almost impressive how content some people are with being mediocre. I built the foundation Sarah is standing on, Julian. I said, my voice low and dangerous. Did you? Julian chuckled, looking around at the wealthy guests. Because it looks to me like Sarah is the one with the vision. You look like the guy who cleans the windows of the buildings she owns. Tell me, do you ever get tired of being a footnote in someone else's success story? I looked at Sarah, waiting. I waited for her to tell him about the nights I spent fixing her spreadsheets. I waited for her to mention that I designed the very logo on the banner behind her. Instead, she just took a sip of her wine. Julian is right, Liam, she said, her eyes cold. You've always had a small mind. You were a good stepping stone. But you're just not built for the heights I'm reaching. Don't be bitter. It's beneath you. The room seemed to tilt. The people around us started to whisper, their eyes darting toward my scuffed shoes. I wasn't just a guest. I was the evening's entertainment. The lazy husband who couldn't keep up. Is that all I was to you, a stepping stone? I asked. You were a phase, Liam, she said, turning her back to me. Julian, darling, tell me more about that offshore acquisition. I didn't go to the bedroom. I didn't grab my coat. I walked straight to the office, grabbed my laptop from the desk, and marched back through the foyer. Leaving so soon? Julian called out, mocking me. Need to get home before the bus stops running? I stopped at the door and looked back at Sarah. She was leaning into him, laughing at something he whispered. She thought she had won. She thought she had successfully erased the man who created her brand. Enjoy the party, Sarah, I said, loud enough for the nearby investors to hear. But remember something. You didn't build this house of cards. I did, and houses of cards have a funny way of falling down when the wind changes. Is that a threat? She asked, rolling her eyes. No, I said, gripping my laptop bag. It's a promise. I made you, Sarah. And God help me, I can unmake you just as easily. I walked out into the cool night air, the laughter of the elite fading behind me. I didn't feel broken anymore. I felt cold, I felt focused. She wanted a world without me? Fine. I would give her exactly that until she realized that without me, her world was empty. I sat in my car for 20 minutes before picking up the phone. The humiliation from the party still burned in my throat like acid. I dialed the number. Marcus, is that offer still on the table? Liam, I was starting to think you'd moved to a cave, Marcus answered. Apex Media always has a seat for a genius. When can you start? Tomorrow morning, I'm ready to work. That's what I like to hear. Come in at 9, I have someone I want you to meet. The next morning, the glass and steel lobby of Apex Media felt like a different universe. Marcus met me at the elevators and led me to a sleek, sunlit corner office. Sitting at a large monitor was a woman with thick glasses and a focused frown. Liam, this is Sophia, Marcus said. She's our lead data analyst. Sophia, meet the man who's going to help us dismantle the competition. Sophia looked up, her expression shy but her eyes sharp. I've seen your portfolio, Liam. Or rather, I've seen the work Sarah's firm claims is theirs. The math doesn't add up. What do you mean? I asked, sitting down across from her. I've been tracking Radiant Reach's growth metrics, Sophia explained, clicking through several graphs. Their success is built on a very specific set of automated design templates and a predictive strategy algorithm. It's brilliant. But Sarah can't explain how it works in interviews. She just calls it her intuition. I leaned in, my heart racing. Those aren't her templates. I built those on my personal server 3 years ago. I developed the algorithm to help her manage the workload while I was working my other jobs. Wait, Marcus interrupted, pulling up a chair. You built the engine for her entire company? I did, I said, a cold realization settling in. And because we were married and I was helping her, I never signed a work-for-hire agreement. I never transferred the intellectual property to her firm. I just let her use it because I thought we were building our future. Sophia typed something rapidly. Liam, if you still have the original source code with the time-stamped metadata on your own hardware, she's in huge trouble. Legally, she's using your proprietary software without a license. I have everything, I said, tapping my laptop bag. I grabbed my drives last night. I thought I was just saving my portfolio, but I was saving the keys to her kingdom. I sat in the break room at Apex, watching the live stream of Sarah's latest product launch for Lumina Cosmetics. It was the first campaign she'd handled entirely without me. She looked radiant on stage, gesturing toward a massive screen. And here is our vision for the future, she announced. The graphic behind her flickered. The color grading was off a sickly neon green where it should have been soft gold. Then the text scrolled. I spotted 3 typos in the first 10 seconds. My hands itched to grab a keyboard and fix it, but I forced myself to take a sip of coffee instead. Ouch, Sophia said, leaning against the doorframe. Did you see the engagement metrics? The comments are eating them alive. People are asking if a middle schooler designed their new interface. I used to spend 6 hours just perfecting the hue of those slides, so they'd look right on every screen, I said. Sarah always called that wasting time on details. Well, those details just cost her 40,000 likes in 10 minutes, Sophia noted. My phone buzzed on the table. The caller ID made my heart skip. It was Mr. Henderson, the CEO of Global Logistics, and the client who had single-handedly kept Sarah's firm in the black during our first 2 years. Liam, is that you? Henderson's voice sounded strained. It's me, Arthur. How are you? I'm annoyed, Liam. I just saw the Lumina launch. It's a mess. And when I called Sarah to ask if my upcoming campaign was going to have the same artistic flaws, she told me I didn't understand modern aesthetics. She hung up on me. That doesn't sound like the Sarah I know, I said, keeping my voice neutral. It sounds exactly like the Sarah I've been dealing with lately, Henderson barked. She's arrogant. She's dismissive. And frankly, Liam, the quality has plummeted. I asked her who was handling my data visualization, and she said some new kid named Leo. Where are you? Why aren't you answering your office line at Radiant? I took a deep breath. I don't work there anymore, Arthur. Sarah and I have moved in different directions. I'm at Apex Media now. There was a long silence on the other end. She let you go? After everything you did for that brand? She felt I wasn't at her level, I said. Not at her level? You were the level. I signed with that firm because of your strategy, not her wardrobe. Henderson sighed heavily. Liam, listen. I have a $5 million contract sitting on her desk right now. I haven't signed it yet. If I move my business to Apex, can you guarantee the same quality I used to get? I can guarantee better, Arthur. I have a team here that actually understands the backend. We've developed some new tools that make my old templates look like finger painting. Send me a proposal by 5, Henderson said. And Liam, I'm sorry. I had a feeling she was a front, but I didn't realize she was this foolish. I hung up and looked at Sophia. She was grinning. That was Henderson, wasn't it? He's jumping ship, I said. And he's probably just the first. You didn't even have to say a bad word about her, she remarked, impressed. I don't need to, I replied, watching the screen as Sarah tried to laugh off a technical glitch during her Q&A. She's doing all the work for me. She thinks she's a queen, but she forgot that a queen needs a kingdom. All she has right now is a very expensive microphone and a failing stream. The board of directors won't be happy. Marcus added, joining us in the break room. I just got a tip. Radiant Reach's stock took a 3% dip during that presentation. That's millions of dollars, Liam. It's just a crack in the mirror for now, I said, setting my coffee down. But the thing about cracks is that they always spread. I felt a strange mix of satisfaction and sadness. I had truly wanted us to succeed together. But as I watched Sarah glare at a technician off camera, I realized I was finally seeing the person she really was. The mask was slipping, and I wasn't there to catch it anymore. My laptop screen flickered with a new message notification. It was a LinkedIn request from a name I recognized. Leo Vance. He was the brilliant young mind Sarah had recently announced as her new creative director. I clicked accept. Mr. Miller, sorry to bother you, do you have a moment to talk? The message read. I pulled out my phone and dialed the number in his profile. He picked up on the first ring. Hello? Is this Liam? It is. You're the one who replaced me at Radiant, right? I leaned back in my chair, curious. I'm the one they hired to fill the void, Leo said, sounding exhausted. But Liam, I'm drowning. Sarah asked me to update the core engine for the new spring rollout. But when I asked her for the logic documentation or the source keys, she just stared at me. She told me I should feel the vibe of the brand. She doesn't have the keys, Leo, I said, a grim smile touching my lips. And she certainly doesn't understand the logic. I figured that out today, Leo whispered. We had a meeting with the tech team. She tried to explain how the predictive algorithm works, and she sounded like she was reading a sci-fi novel. She doesn't know anything, does she? You were the one doing all of this. I was, for 5 years. She's a nightmare, Liam. Today she blamed me for the Lumina disaster in front of the whole office. She said I lacked the elite instinct you apparently had. But then she told me your work was mediocre in the same breath. I can't work for someone who lies to herself this much. So, why are you calling me? I asked. Because I'm resigning tomorrow, Leo said firmly. And I know 3 other designers who want out. She's created a toxic environment to hide her own incompetence. We heard you're at Apex. Do you have room for people who actually want to work? I might. But why help me? Because she treated you like a disposable tool and she's doing the same to us. I saw the old files, Liam. I saw the hidden notes you left in the code, the ones about making her dreams come true. It made me sick to see how she threw that away. I felt a surge of cold, calculated focus. It wasn't just about my broken heart anymore. She was hurting other people to maintain a lie I had helped build. Send me your resumes, I said. And Leo? Don't sign any non-compete forms on your way out. She doesn't have the legal standing to enforce them anyway. Thank you, Liam, truly. I hung up and looked at Marcus, who was watching me from across the office. What was that about? He asked. The pawn is tired of being played, I said. Sarah is losing her staff. The talent is jumping ship because they've realized the captain doesn't know how to sail. This is getting intense, Marcus noted. She wanted to be at the top alone, I replied, opening a new strategy document. Now she's going to find out how lonely it really is. I'm not her husband anymore. I'm the person who's going to hire away every good thing she has left. I wasn't the grieving ex anymore. I was the competition. And unlike Sarah, I knew exactly how to build a winning team. The bell above the door chimed as I stepped into the coffee shop near the Apex office. I just wanted a black coffee, but the universe had other plans. There, at a corner table, sat Sarah. She was staring at her phone, her brow furrowed in a way that suggested her perfect morning wasn't going as planned. Her hair was impeccable, but her eyes looked frantic. I tried to turn back, but she looked up. Liam? I sighed and walked toward the counter. Sarah, surprised to see you this far downtown. I had a meeting nearby. Julian and I were discussing expansion, she said, though her voice lacked its usual bite. She looked me up and down, her lip curling slightly. You look tired, Liam. Is that little startup Marcus runs working you too hard? Or are you just struggling with the reality of living in a studio? I'm doing just fine, Sarah. Better than fine, actually. Don't lie to me. I know how you get when you're stressed. She reached into her designer handbag and pulled out a checkbook. She scribbled something quickly, tore the page out, and slid it across the wooden table. Here. I looked down. It was a check for $5,000. What is this? Consider it a pity check. Or a severance package for your years of service to my brand, she said, leaning back with a smug expression. Take the money, move to a different city, and start a little design boutique. Stay out of the high-stakes marketing world. You're clearly out of your depth, and honestly, seeing you around is becoming a bit of an eyesore for my investors. I picked up the check. The paper felt thin and pathetic in my hand. I looked her dead in the eye. You think my 5 years of sacrifice and the foundation of your entire company is worth $5,000? I think it's more than you're worth now, she retorted. Just take it and go away, Liam. You're a reminder of a past I've moved beyond. Slowly, deliberately, I gripped the edges of the check. I ripped it down the middle. Then I ripped it again and again, until small white confetti drifted onto her expensive silk scarf. What are you doing? She hissed, her face reddening. Do you have any idea how much that could have helped you? I don't need your money, Sarah. I have something much more valuable, I said, leaning over the table until I was inches from her face. I have the truth. And the truth is, you can't even manage a product launch without my templates. I know about the typos. I know about the board meetings where you can't explain your own data, and I know about Mr. Henderson. Her face went pale. What about Arthur? He's at Apex now, I whispered. And he's not the last one. You didn't just end a marriage when you handed me those papers, Sarah. You ended your career. You just don't know it yet because you're too busy looking at your own reflection to see the ground disappearing under your feet. For the first time in 5 years I saw it. A flash of genuine, unadulterated fear in her eyes. Her hand trembled as she reached for her latte. You're being delusional, she stammered. I am the CEO. I am the face of this industry. You're a mask, Sarah. And I'm the one who painted it, I said, turning toward the door. Good luck with your expansion. You're going to need it. I walked out without my coffee. I didn't need the caffeine. The adrenaline of seeing her crumble was enough. For the first time since the divorce, the weight in my chest felt lighter. I wasn't just surviving. I was winning. The look on her face when the courier arrived must have been priceless, Mr. Vance said, leaning back in his leather chair. He adjusted his glasses and tapped a stack of documents on his mahogany desk. We did it, Liam. The cease and desist is officially served. Is it ironclad? I asked, my heart hammering against my ribs. She fight this. She claimed the software was marital property or a gift. She can try, Vance replied with a confident smirk. But your metadata doesn't lie. You created the source code and the proprietary design framework 14 months before you even proposed to her. You never signed a transfer of ownership. You merely granted her an informal, verbal license to use it. A license you have now revoked. So, what happens to her operations today, legally? Everything stops. If she runs a single campaign using your automation scripts, she's in contempt. Her servers are essentially locked until she purges your IP. And since your IP is the entire engine of Radiant Reach, her firm is effectively a parked car without an engine. She called me 10 times this morning, I muttered, looking at my silenced phone. I didn't answer. Good, don't. Let the silence do the talking. The office door opened, and Sophia walked in, followed by a woman I recognized instantly. It was Clara, Sarah's former personal assistant. She looked pale, clutching a thick folder to her chest as if it were a life jacket. Liam, Clara whispered, her voice trembling. I saw what was happening with the legal filing. I couldn't stay quiet anymore. I quit this morning. Clara, I thought you were Sarah's right hand, I said, pulling out a chair for her. I was, she said, sitting down, until I realized I was helping a criminal. Sarah was so desperate to keep Julian's investment that she started manipulating things. She knew the company was failing without your input, so she forced me to alter the quarterly projections. She's been cooking the books, Liam. My stomach turned. To what extent? Clara opened the folder, revealing spreadsheets with handwritten notes in Sarah's distinctive loopy cursive. She inflated the Lumina contract value by 300%. She's been moving money from old client deposits to cover the current operational deficit. The news broke just after dinner. A headline on the financial blog screamed about a tech freeze at Radiant Reach. By 10 o'clock, the rumors of an internal audit had reached the mainstream. I sat in my darkened apartment, the blue light of my laptop illuminating the room, watching the digital collapse of the woman who thought I was an anchor. My phone rang at 12:15 a.m. I stared at Sarah's name on the screen for 3 long rings before sliding the bar to answer. Liam? Her voice was unrecognizable. It was high, thin, and ragged with sobbing. It's late, Sarah. What do you want? He left me, Liam. Julian just walked out. He didn't even listen to me. He told me I was damaged goods, and that he couldn't have his name associated with a legal circus. How could he do that? I thought we had something real. Julian didn't love you, Sarah, I said, leaning back against the cold wall. He loved the idea of a CEO girlfriend. He loved the prestige. The moment you lost your shine, you became a liability to him. I could have told you that months ago. Why are you doing this to me? She wailed, the sound of glass breaking echoing in the background. She must have thrown her phone or a bottle. The lawyers served the injunction today. I can't even open my own design software. The office is in a panic. The board is calling for an emergency meeting, and now this folder of financial records? Was that you? Did you send that to Julian? I didn't have to send anything, Sarah. Your own lies caught up to you. You were cooking the books to keep a man who only liked you for your bank account. I did it for the company, she screamed. I did it for our legacy. No, I corrected her, my voice dropping to a calm, icy whisper. You did it for your ego. You wanted to prove you were elite without me. You wanted to show the world that I was just a footnote. Well, here's the reality. When you removed the footnote, the whole book stopped making sense. Liam, please talk to your lawyers. Tell them it was a mistake. Tell them we can reach a settlement. I'll give you half the company. Just help me fix this. You always know how to fix things. I looked at the divorce papers still sitting in my trash bin. You spent 5 years building a career on my back, Sarah. Then you spent exactly 5 minutes ending our marriage because I wasn't at your level. Do you remember that? You told me I was dragging you down. I was stressed. I didn't mean it like that. You meant every word. You saw me as a tool, and when you thought the tool was dull, you threw it away. But the tool was the only thing keeping the house standing. I'm not doing anything to you, Sarah. I'm just stopping my support. I'm standing back and letting gravity take over. You're falling under your own weight, and for the first time in my life, I'm not going to catch you. You're heartless, she choked out. No, I said, my finger hovering over the end call button. I'm just no longer your ghostwriter. Write your own ending this time, Sarah. If you're as elite as you say, I'm sure you'll find a way out. I hung up before she could respond. The silence that followed was heavy, but it wasn't lonely. I realized then that the woman I had loved never truly existed. She was a character I had helped her play. Now that the script was gone, there was nothing left but a stranger crying in a hollow house. I stared at the glossy magazine on the mahogany table of the restaurant. The headline read, "The architect steps out of the shadows." Below it was a photo of me. I looked different. The bags under my eyes were gone, replaced by a gaze that was steady and sharp. I was wearing a charcoal suit that fit perfectly, but the real change was in my posture. I wasn't leaning away anymore. I was taking up space. You're staring at yourself again, Sophia teased, sitting across from me. She looked radiant in a simple black dress, her glasses pushed up onto her head. I just don't recognize him, I admitted, sliding the magazine toward her. For 5 years, I was the guy behind the camera. I was the guy in the beige hoodie fixing code at 2 a.m. Seeing this, it feels like looking at a stranger. That's because you aren't a ghost anymore, Liam, she said, her voice softening as she reached across the table to touch my hand briefly. You're the CEO of the fastest growing firm in the sector. You're the story now. How does that feel? It feels balanced, I said, meeting her eyes. I realized something this week, Sophia. My value was never about how much I could sacrifice for someone else. It was about what I could build when I actually respected my own talent. I spent so much time making. Sarah looked like a genius that I forgot I was the one providing the light. Well, the industry noticed, she smiled. Marcus told me we have 3 Fortune 500 companies requesting meetings for next month. You're not just at the level anymore, Liam. You've set a new one. The waiter arrived with our steaks. But my attention was pulled toward the television mounted above the bar. The news ticker was scrolling rapidly. I saw a familiar building, the headquarters of Radiant Reach. The camera zoomed in on the glass doors as a group of people in suits walked out. In the middle was Sarah. She wasn't wearing a designer suit today. She looked small, her face shielded by her hair. As she was escorted to a waiting car by what looked like federal investigators. Is that? Sophia asked, turning her head to follow my gaze. That's the end of the line, I whispered. The news anchor's voice drifted over the ambient noise of the restaurant. Following a massive fraud investigation and allegations of intellectual property theft, Sarah Miller has officially stepped down. The firm is expected to file for bankruptcy by the end of the week. I felt a sharp pang in my chest, a lingering echo of the man who used to love her. It was sad to see 5 years of work crumble into a police report. But as I watched the car drive away, I realized that the sadness didn't come with a shred of regret. I hadn't pushed her off the cliff. I had simply stopped holding her up while she kicked me. Are you okay? Sophia asked, her hand lingering near mine. We can leave if this is too much. No, I said, turning back to her and the warm glow of our table. I'm fine, truly. It's just strange seeing a house of cards finally fall. I used to think I'd be buried under it if it ever collapsed. But look at us. We're still here. We're more than here, Sophia said, raising her wine glass. We're just getting started. To living for yourself, Liam. To living for myself, I repeated, clinking my glass against hers. There was a spark between us. Something quiet and real that didn't feel like a transaction. But for the first time, I wasn't rushing to prove my worth or buy her a kingdom. I was content. I was reviewing the final quarterly projections with Sophia when my receptionist's voice crackled over the intercom. Mr. Miller, there's a woman here to see you. She doesn't have an appointment, but she says it's urgent. I knew who it was before she even opened the door. When Sarah walked into my office, the silence was heavy. Her designer coat was wrinkled, her hair was limp, and the arrogance that used to define her expression had been replaced by a raw, desperate hollow. Liam, she whispered, her voice cracking. Please, I didn't know where else to go. I'm losing everything, she said, stepping closer to my desk. Her hands were shaking. The feds took the house. I'm completely radioactive in this industry. Nobody will even interview me for an entry-level position. She suddenly dropped to her knees, her tears smudging what was left of her makeup. I was blinded by the light, Liam. I thought I was the one shining, but it was always you. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry for what I said, for what I did. Please give me a job. Anything. I'll work in the mailroom. I'll do your data entry. Just don't let me starve. But as I watched her sob against the edge of my desk, I realized I felt nothing. No hate. No heat. No desire for revenge. She was just a person who had made a series of cruel choices, and now she was living with the consequences. Get up, Sarah, I said firmly. She stood up, hope flickering in her eyes for a split second. Does that mean? It means you're making a scene, I interrupted. The door opened, and Marcus walked in, holding a folder. He stopped when he saw her, his eyebrows shooting up. Is this a private meeting, or am I interrupting the ghost of Christmas past? Marcus, you remember Sarah, I said, my voice flat. She was just asking for a job. Marcus looked at her, then back at me. Is she serious? After the lawsuits? After the fraud? Liam, we're a top-tier firm now. We don't hire liabilities. We're moving in a very different direction. A direction that requires trust, integrity, and actual skill. You don't fit our model anymore. Liam, please. You loved me, she cried out. I loved the person I thought you were, I replied. I reached under my desk and pulled out a small, dried-up bundle wrapped in brittle plastic. I set it on the table between us. They were the lily from the day she left, brown, shriveled, and dead. I kept these in the back of my closet. I found them when I was moving the last of my things. She stared at the dead flowers. What is this? These were for you, I said softly. I bought them to celebrate your success. I bought them because I thought we were a team. You spent 5 minutes ending 5 years, Sarah. These flowers died that same day. Keep them as a memory of what you walked away from. You're really going to just turn me away? She asked, her voice trembling. I'm not turning you away, Sarah. I already turned the page, I said, looking back at my monitor. Marcus, let's go over those Henderson contracts. Sarah, please see yourself out. My assistant can show you where the elevators are. Then, without another word, she turned and walked out. I didn't watch her leave. I didn't need to. The debt was settled, not with a check, but with the quiet realization that she no longer had any power over my heart. The city lights stretched out before me like a sea of diamonds. From this balcony, 30 floors up, the world looked quiet, organized, and full of possibility. I adjusted my watch, feeling the cool evening breeze against my face. You're doing that brooding thing again, Sophia said, stepping out beside me. She handed me a glass of sparkling water, her fingers lingering against mine. Is it brooding if I'm just enjoying the view? I asked, smiling at her. Neither, actually, I replied. I reached into my pocket and pulled out a small, crumpled envelope. This came in the mail today, postmarked from a small town 3 states away. Sophia tilted her head. From her? Yeah, from Sarah. I opened the letter. The handwriting was different, shaky, less practiced than the elegant script she used to use to sign off on my hard work. What does she say? Sophia asked softly. I looked down at the page. She's working at a diner, pulling double shifts as a waitress, just to afford a studio apartment. She says the physical labor makes her think about the nights I spent working for her. She wrote, I finally get it, Liam. I never appreciated the weight you carried so I could fly. I was a child playing with a giant's tools. I'm sorry for thinking you were the anchor when you were actually the engine. That's quite an admission, Sophia remarked. Do you believe her? It doesn't really matter if I do, I said, folding the paper back into a small square. She also said she hopes I'm happy. She asked if I could ever find it in my heart to write back. Just so she knows I don't hate her, and will you? Challenged me and built this new world with me. I thought about the boxes in the garage, the shriveled lily, and the man who used to believe his only value was in someone else's success. That man was gone. No, I said, my voice steady. I don't hate her, but I don't owe her my words anymore. She has her life to build now, and I have mine. I think that's the right choice, Sophia whispered. I spent 5 years being the shadow behind her spotlight, I said, setting the letter down on the small patio table. I'm done being part of her story. I like the one I'm writing now much better. The view is better from here anyway, she joked, leaning her head on my shoulder. Much better, I agreed. I left the letter on the table, weighted down by an empty glass. I didn't need to carry it inside. I turned my back on the past and walked through the sliding glass doors into the warm, bright light of my own office. For the first time in my life, I wasn't supporting someone else's dream. I was living mine. I was no longer the shadow. I was finally the light.